Hey guys, this is Colin Moshman for PokerStrategy.com. Today we have live play spins at low and micro stakes with aggressive, strong, regular Goldman V playing. So we'll get to see his approach for beating these games. And let's go right to the action. Before we do, Jack 4 suited would normally be a complete. Any suited face card hand we can complete, getting 5 to 1 here. And 4-3 offsuit will be a default fold. And it appears that's what Goldman's doing. Jack 2 suited, I would fold on the button, raise down to Jack 6 or 7 suited. And this flop, we should just check it back. Maybe c-bet against 1. Against 2 players, I would definitely check back. But notice here we pick up the flush draw. If they both check again, we could definitely stab this as a semi-bluff. Players are showing a lot of weakness, and that's exactly what Goldman is doing. Just get one call. Expect that big part of his range is going to be some busted draws like Jack 10. He could have 8x, maybe some kind of passively played Queen X. I would tend to fire that river a little bit smaller, but we take down the pot. Another late open on the right with the 8-4 suited. Ace-4 suited, good as just a complete. And here I tend to check call. A lot of hands that are a combination of made hand and draw can play a little bit slower. We're not worried about turn cards. And so if we check call here on the left, we're also going to be more likely to keep in this player in the big blind. And so that's the play I would have liked a little bit better here, is to check call this flop bet. We're not worried about any turn cards. We have a made hand and we're drawing. And we maximize our chances of keeping in this player, which we want to do. For 7 blinds, I would shove down to 6-5 suited, 9-8 off approximately. And a good shove there doesn't work out. But meanwhile, we're heads up on the right-hand table against a player that looks pretty loose passive. So far, over 47 hands, he's playing 62-11. Tend to just check fold here, Queen 6 off. We do have the weak end of the open end of straight draw, but a ton of hands he's going to call with at that flop. We spike our straight, and here we should usually just call because basically he either has a straight, in which case it doesn't matter all that much that we do, or he has air. And so by just calling, we maximize our chances of getting it in when we do have the best hand. We let him continue to bluff if he is bluffing, so I like that a lot. Now on the right-hand side, hero 4-bet shoves, which is not by any means a bad play, but I would tend to 4-bet small. Against a reg that would look really transparent, that short effective stack, we 4-bet small. But against a really loose passive player, they're rarely going to fold, and they're probably not going to read too much into a small 4-bet. So when he 3-bet with the pocket aces, I would tend to just put in a small 4-bet and look to try to maximize value that way. So 4-7 offsuit, we fold. Queen 3 suited, a good defense in the big blind. Getting our 5 to 1 again. And we'll check fold that flop. Looks like the player in the right may be kind of tilty. He was passive, but now he might just be shoving a lot. So the way that we should tend to respond to that is to start limping more and folding junk hands. He gets tagged. Hero tags him as a lagfish. So limping some hands that we play and then stacking off a lot later, folding some more in the button, basically just getting a hand to go in with. And here, this is a really good example. Okay, so I would not be folding this hand. We check call flop, that's perfect. And no matter what he does, if he shoves this turn, I will call based on the way he's been playing here. I would not be looking to fold this hand. Now I would bet out the river. I would make a value bet once he checks back turn. If he bets turn, we can just check call and let him hang himself. But when he checks back turn, I would put out a value bet on river. There is some merit to checking and hoping he bluffs, but he's less likely to bluff once he's checked back turn. Pretty close, I guess. Jack 2 suited, I would limp there. And then we lose less when he shoves and look to play a small pot in position. Call him off, exactly the right call with the pocket 5s. So hero handles that very well. And just going to bank that in the 4x. Very nicely done. And we'll get our next table. So ace-8 suited, if we c-bet this, we can fold. We have the double overcards and the open-ended straight draw. So too much equity to fold. I would check back this turn, though. And now we probably have the best hand, and I would call this. We're getting about 3-1 here. Pretty quickly folds. It's close. We need to be good one time in 4. I definitely don't think we're good like half the time. But he could have something random often enough that might be worth a call. If he checked, I would have definitely checked it back and just looked to showdown. The right hand side, I would open any suited king at the first blind level. So a good open and pretty standard shove on the left with the king 10 offsuit. Unfortunately, we missed that. Of course, a lot of spins. This comes down to how we run flips, 60-40s, and pretty inevitable confrontations. 9-6 suited, I'm guessing that Goldman's going to check this back, but he elects to attack the limp. Definitely a reasonable option as well. We don't expect to be limp 3-bet that often. When it does happen, we'll just fold. And the nice thing about that line is that, we can win 2 ways. So either he folds pre, or he calls and then plays hit to win at the flop. A hand like 9-6 suited plays pretty well also, so for that reason we might just check it back. But never going to be any kind of big mistake to attack a limp without much history. Typically we're going to fold 6-3 offsuit on the button. Tagging all these players. But while we're getting it straightened out, seeing how he plays, it's fine to play most buttons. As a default though, junk hands on the button I will be folding. And here's the pocket kings. Go ahead, raise pre, get in at the flop with very high equity, and hold up. 7-5 suited plays very well as a limp. So this is a hand a lot of the time I would be limping. Then another nice benefit about limping is that we can also then call a raise. If we limp and he makes it 65, we can call. So that's what I would be doing a lot of the time with a hand like 7-5 suited. Let's see what Hiri likes to do. Continuing with the min-raising strategy. And when we min-raise and we get min 3-bet, big blind just clicks it back, we're never going to fold. No matter what we've opened, we should always at least call facing that min 3-bet when we have position and we're getting such good odds. Nine six offsuit, here folds again. Another hand we could limp. Could be mixing in some more limps. This guy's playing very aggressively, so he would be a good candidate to incorporate some limps against. And at 11 blinds, we open shove the 10-9 suited. King Queen off is pretty standard stack off. When he min 3-bets, the one benefit of just calling is that we keep his range wide. So if we 4-bet, we're going to fold out some hands that we dominate. Maybe a hand like King 9 offsuit, stuff like that. So that's the one benefit. We could also 4-bet, but that I think is why Hero just calls, to keep in hands that we dominate. And that's a very reasonable decision pre. Don't think we're going to be hero calling this. On a dry flop, dry run out, we might hero call king high at the end, a good king high. But on that particular board, we just have to fold. Another limp attack. Pretty clear decision to stack off with this flop. I might check at him. I like this check a lot. What this check is going to happen, allow to happen, is for him to bluff. And we also have that combination again of made hand and draw, where we've got a gut shot, we've got a flush draw, so we don't mind all that much if he checks back. We've got our made hand, we've got our draw, so that's a great line. I really like turn checks in spots like that. Very nice line by Hero. Probably didn't matter when he had a 10 as well. But some of the time he will just be floating, and we have a nice opportunity to keep his range wide with that check. Left hand table, we call down to about king queen off, king jack suited, pocket sixes, ace 10 offsuit, ace 9 or 8 suited. Be my approximate range for calling off the 25 blind squeeze. Say most commonly with queen jack offsuit, I check that. But raising is totally fine as well, particularly when you flop top two pair. Tends to make the raise a little more profitable. A lot of it's just a matter of style and preference. So out of position, I tend to raise limps a little bit more on the tight side, but no problem just raising that as well. And now we'll attack with Jack 8 offsuit. Bit of a larger raise in the small blind to deny our opponent the same odds to defend in position. Here now, semi-bluff stabbed the turn and is going to check the 9 with his showdown value. I believe planning to check call there. And this should be a check raise on the left. So similar line. Now that line on the left is a little bit different because now it's kind of a disaster if our opponent checks back. But a lot of the time he will bet, and so we can go ahead and give him that opportunity to fire, make our hand look a lot weaker, and put in the check raise. So a solid line by Hero. Here it checks back to pot control the flop with Ace Jack high. And when we do that, we're also going to be calling most blanks. And Hero raises the turn. I think he's just trying to build a pot. And I can't imagine he's ever going to fold here. I mean, some of the time our opponent's going to have an A like he does there. But once we raise turn, we're definitely committed on the river. Hand's much too strong heads up to get away from without some kind of really strong read. So I would also have gone broke there. King 4 offsuit tends to be a pretty good raise fold hand. Could also open limp against a passive guy. I prefer open shoving to folding at 12 blinds, but at 12 I am more commonly going to min raise or limp depending on our opponent. Another attack in the big blind and another pretty good flop. See that here does not always go for that turn check. And I would just shove river. If we're deeper, that's not going to be our play. But at this point, the stack to pot ratio is about 0.5. And anytime that the effective remaining stack is much smaller than the pot, we should be a lot more aggressive, just value bet shoving when it's at all close. Massive three-way all in here. Can we hold? Yes. Very cool. So we'll go heads up with a 3 blind effective stack. And jam on the right. Anything besides total junk. We made full total junk. And it looks like we're about to win that one. And here in the left, this is pretty close. For a little bit deeper, we might just call and let them continue to bluff. But there the pot, again, the effective remaining stack was small compared to the pot. So here just put in the check raise. Tens are pretty happily going to stack off pre, of course. And without any kind of read, without a lot of overlay, just a sort of a very basic guideline, it would be pretty rare during the first blind level that we would ever fold, say, eights, ace queen off, ace 10 suited. I mean, normally we're going to stack off wider than that. For example, earlier facing flat and a 3-bet shove as a squeeze, I gave a much wider range. But that range that I just gave would be a range where it would take a really extreme situation for us to consider folding. Our opponent shoves. Guessing here is going to be tagging him soon. Maybe not yet. Maybe he has to shove 1 or 2 more times before Hero is going to put in that tag. I'll tell you one, man, Hero's got some pretty nice luck when he attacks these limp spray. What is this guy going to have? Does he have an 8? Yeah, he does have an 8. King Queen off, that spot's really close. That should be a Nash call. Against some randoms, I would not actually make that call, and we will suck out to a chop there. To give an example, If I min raise king queen off at 10-20 on the button with full stacks, and the small blind 3-bet shoves, and I don't know anything about him, I would tend to fold. But once stacks get shorter, we can be more inclined to stack off there. So here his note is at 10-20. He opened them button with ace jack. I think on the left side, I was looking at the right hand side, but I believe Hero folded a min raise with queen 5 offsuit when the small blind min raise and more in the big blind. If so, I think that fold is a little bit too tight. I would defend. Whenever the small blind min raises and we're the big blind, we can defend super wide, getting 3-1 in position. So for example, queen X would be a default defense in the big blind for me in that spot, mainly by flatting, sometimes with a light 3-bet, putting in a small 3-bet. We're going to snap that ace queen, probably call that down to about ace 8 offsuit on the left. Unfortunately, he gets there. 6-5 off, if he opens, we should fold. If he folds, we should shove. So if we started this hand off with 50 chips or fewer, we actually start off with 83, we're getting 2-1 or better, and that's about what I would need in order to stack off there. This king is a nice barreling card. I like this barrel. We can probably get him to fold. He's got pretty loose stats, but at least against most players, there's a good chance we can get them to fold one pair hands, like 7x or even 9x there when we barrel. And we'll lose the left. So that stab with 3 deuce suited that Hero made, generally non-make against a very loose passive opponent on a fairly coordinated flop. But like we've seen, a pretty integral part of Hero's strategy has been these small stabs. You know, when people don't show a lot of interest at the pot, like flop gets checked around multi-way, Hero stabs turn, somebody limps on the button, we attack. Wow, what light stack-offs on the left-hand table. Sweet win there in hand number 1, that's awesome. So definitely some good value at these microstake spins. So yeah, Hero being a lot more inclined to attack in these small pots and win more than his share of them, which is definitely an effective approach. I would just check this back. I like this check back. We have kind of an underrepresented ace high after checking back. And I'm normally checking not back, but checking first to act on that turn as well, with some showdown value with the ace high and the weak flush draw. This guy seems to be going pretty crazy. Now it's time for his note. Wow. Pretty harsh note there by Hero. And he gets the lagfish tag. That's pretty brutal. I hope he's not watching this video. So this is great. I really like this open limp. I think definitely against opponents who are playing a super long ball approach pre-flop, we want to be limping more. So nice limp. Of course, anytime you actually have a decent hand in limp, they're always going to check back, but in theory at least. So we're never going to fold facing that turn bet, that turn min bet. The only question that Hero had was whether to call turn or to raise, turning his hand into a bluff, and he apparently decided to turn it into a bluff. It's just totally reasonable. Hero is getting kind of pissed off here. It's pretty funny. So there I might open limp once again. I guess it doesn't matter all that much. That guy's not folding too often. And just a standard cooler. or bad beat depending on how this plays out. But obviously neither player is going to fold pre. Good value bet with the Jack of Hearts on the left. And I would just call this. I don't think we can 3-bet for value. And I also don't think we can fold getting better than 4-1. And he has this just pipped with the Queen of Hearts. Just pretty unfortunate. Here betting again. This is a value bet. He's doing this to get called by worse. And now he's going to check back this river, I'm pretty sure. If he fires river again, he'd be turning the hand into a bluff. And I think it has too much showdown value for that. So I like how he played that hand a lot. Jack 5 suited, I would also open limp here, and that's what Hero does. And that's a big reason. Okay, so if we're min raising a lot against someone who's 3-bet shoving frequently, we're going to lose a lot more chips. 10-8 offsuit is normally much too tight to fold on the button, but I think Hero believes that his opponent is basically shoving any hand pre-flop. Now, if that were literally true, that our opponent is always shoving pre-flop, then limp folding is burning money. And here he's going to limp call, I believe at least. I don't think he's going to fold an ace. Can we hold up is the question, and yes. All right. King, Queen off, I would definitely attack those limps as well. King, Queen off, Queen, Jack suited are definitely Broadway hands I would do that with. And we'll shove the ace-6 offsuit. After checking flop with the second pair for pot control, here now value bets turn, which is good. And we jam on the right-hand side. Any deeper, and we put in a small raise to try to induce. But at 10 blinds, I like just shoving. Another 2x prize pool. Another big part of how you do in spins in the short-term release is going to be how well you run in terms of the larger prize pools. And pocket kings on the right. If our opponent raises, let's say he min-raised, we would 3-bet to 100. And now here it comes in with a standard small blind open. And what a flop. So our two choices here, we could check, or we can bet very small. We don't want to bet large. We want to keep his range as wide as possible. Against an unknown, there's a good chance we're going to do best by just checking. Against a reg, I would usually fire a small bet with pretty much my entire range. And no way to get action there with our set. Mega draw on the right, we should check raise and get it in. We could actually just check shove here. I think Hero makes a small check raise thinking it'll look stronger. And this is interesting on the left. Hero makes a 3-bet. This is a really nice 3-bet against a reg because we want to be able to 3-bet small with premium hands. Against an unknown, I would mainly have an unbalanced 3-bet range of just stronger hands. So again, with low offsuit ace, small blind, that's a nice 3-bet against a reg. And generally against unknowns, not a play we want to be making all that often. Good fold with king 3 off on the button. Queen 9 off here checks. I like that. We could shove for 13 blinds. Checking fine as well. And I think Hero would have bet that turn if he didn't have showdown value, but Queen High could definitely show down here. In fact, it does. We do get him to... We don't get him to do anything. We get him to lose that pot. So he's got 10 high. For 3 offsuit, I would default fold. Here are players searching him, and basically if Hero sees that he's playing more tables, Hero is going to... I guess assume he's a reg. Based on his HUD though, someone playing 88-0 even after just 9 hands is very unlikely to be a reg. But in general, that's what Hero has in mind. Player searching. Small bet on the right, so betting half pot if we succeed a third of the time. Since we actually bet a little under half pot, we'll show a profit. And we'll probably succeed often enough based on the weakness he's shown, even though we're not repping too much with the river bet. This is going to be an ATC call on the left, getting much better than 2-1. And I would fold. Once the small blind calls as well, I would fold. And I would fold here as well. Both our made hand and our draw are too marginal, so this is not going to be a call. Good fold by hero. But again, what would have been a clear any two cards call facing just the initial shover, to me was no longer a call once the small blind called. Good shove on the left. Six-five offsuit is correct big blind defense pre. And normally it would be check calling the flop. If he, for example, nice turn there, bet full pot at the flop, I would just check fold. But facing a normal sizing, we're usually going to check call at least once. So now we should check shove. We've got the best hand most of the time. It's very vulnerable. We don't want to give him a free card. A 315 is fine, but this is a non-all-in check shove. This is basically the same as shoving. So another line that I completely agree with in terms of how hero played that hand. We'll just check on the left and hope to get to showdown. A little bit confused by the turn raise on the right. I would think we would just call that. I think the purpose of that raise is a free showdown play. King 3 off is a good fold. So raising him at the turn with the plan of checking back river. But generally I would just be calling there at the turn. Easy call with ace-x for 11 blinds, except against an extremely tight player. And we bink. Another win. Here is doing good. Nine-five suited, just check fold. And pretty much regardless of the run out, I would just be giving up. I definitely would not stab this turn. Much too coordinated. And I like giving up at the river as well. Okay, well now we have a 25 times prize pool. If you ever get a very high prize pool, it's also completely reasonable to sit out or pay a lot less attention to other games. You know, for example, certainly if you hit the largest prize pool period, I would advise sitting out of other tables. If you're playing for $1 million or something in a spin. Hopefully that's a problem that all of you guys have. But basically the nice river there. Idea is just that it's really bad if you are devoting effort to a tourney of one buy-in when a tourney that's many multiples greater, you have action that you're not able to think over as well as a result of the smaller buy-in tourney. Queen 9 offsuit is going to be an open shove pre. Effective stack here is 8 blinds. They both call. We'll see if we can bink. And we do bink. So we win the 4x. Can we win the 25x? I certainly hope so. Right hand side we attack a limp. I like attacking limps very wide. If I 3 off is slightly too weak for me, I would tend to check that back pre. But generally we can attack limps very wide. So now we're heads up on the left hand table. 10-5 offsuit I would play on the button. 25 blinds against an unknown. Tend to start off min-raising there. Deuces will open. If he makes a small 3-bet, we're going to 4-bet shove. If he just jams on us, that should be a Nash call, but I wouldn't really love that spot against an unknown for over 20 blinds. And a bluff shove on the right does not work out. Here trying to take advantage of some risk aversion, but the timing does not work out there. So we've got a few more minutes of footage, and we'll go through the rest of this footage and continue discussing these spots. And Queen 9 offsuit, we c-bet. Ace 4 offsuit, we also c-bet. And I would check this turn. If we continue to barrel, then we're going to get him to fold a lot of worse hands. And so that's a good example. We got him to stack off there with the Queen 6 offsuit. He probably would not have raised if we had just bet turn. So that was another very good use of the turn check when we had the pre-flop and flop lead. Line that I tend to really like in a lot of different situations, particularly with those made hand and draw combos. For 3 off, we'll call. We'll check call with bottom pair. If he bets again, we're going to give up unless he bets the min. So if he bet 40 here, I would check fold. When he bets 20, that's a little bit too small to fold, so we can either call or check raise and turn it into a bluff, which is what hero does. And now we'll give up on this pot. Flop the nuts on the left. Very coordinated flop. We're definitely not going to slow play this. And if he checks again, we should bet about 120. I think 68 is slightly on the small side there. And now we're just hoping that we can check this back. Good fold on the right hand side. Pocket threes, I would be tempted but not call. I would definitely call fives. Fours is close. I would definitely call fives, but fold threes and deuces. Right hand side, like we said, we min raise pre-flop and we get min 3-bet, or approximately min raise. We're never going to fold. And our plan would have been to essentially call him down, but with 4 to a straight out there, I think we're done with this hand. I believe hero is just going to fold. He's thinking about it. I don't know whether he's thinking about calling or raising. Apparently calling, hoping that villain checks river. This is going to be quite the hero call if he calls here. Again, I would have given up turn, but I'm very interested to see what happens there. Okay, so he folds, basically just seeing if villain would give up river. So similar to here with this 5-deuce suited, our plan, most of the time our opponent's going to bet minimum maybe 25 there and we check call. When he overbets, I would check fold. It's not that I'm completely convinced they're a beat or anything. The problem is that we're going to be playing the rest of the hand out of position, and it's going to be really tough to play this hand and get to showdown even when we have the best hand. So for that reason, I would have folded at the flop when our opponent overbet. I think on the left, hero has made late 3-bets 2 hands in a row. I'm not completely sure why, just trying to attack weakness, I guess. Generally doing a lot more calling out of the big blind, particularly against unknown or weak players. And a nice 4-bet shove against that same player who's made that play before. So hero's not buying anymore. He's putting his foot down. I like it. Check call is good on the right. And I would call here with the plan of calling river as well. Most rivers at least. You know, we might fold a 9, a 10, but most rivers we've got to call. So that's perfect. Here gets max value there. Very nicely done. And queen 3 off again. Any queen normally going to be an open on the button. And we can put in the value race here. Here are value shoves for less than pot. Our opponent may be a little bit frustrated at this point. We should look out for him starting to go into sort of wild shove fold territory. And king 7 offsuit we should call here for 13. He's been loose enough that I would look him up here. And we stack off with the open and straight draw and hit the backdoor flush. Nice way to win that. So we'll go ahead and finish this game on right-hand side with effective stack here of just over 20 blinds. Snap call, no question, we're going to call that with top pair. Even against an unknown, we would go ahead and call there. And now we'll play shove fold with a 6 blind effective stack. And hopefully win this. So that's going to end this video. If you guys have any questions or comments on the style, on individual hands, or anything else, please feel free to leave in the thread and I'll be very happy to answer. This has been Colin Moshman for PokerStrategy.com.